So are there really 3 hours of questions? Or has it? Are you fucking serious?
Yeah. You don't even allowed to talk about Elon?
Holy fuck, man.
I mean, it's the most interesting point. All the storylines are kind of converging right now. So we'll see how much.
Almost like I planned it.
Exactly. Well, we'll get to
I would never do such a thing.
So, as you know better than anybody else, the total cost of ownership of a data center, only 10 to 15% is energy. And that's the part you're presumably saving by moving this into space. Most of it's the GPUs. If they're in space, it's harder to service them, or you can't service them. And so the depreciation cycle goes down on them. So like, it's just way more expensive to have the GPUs in space, presumably. What's the reason to put them in space?
Well, the availability of energy is the issue. I mean, if you look at electrical output outside of China, everywhere outside of China, it's more or less flat. It's very, maybe a slight increase, but for pretty close to flat. China has a rapid increase in electrical output. But if you're putting data centers anywhere except China, where are you going to get your electricity? Especially as you scale. The output of chips is growing pretty much exponentially, but the output of electricity is flat. So how are you going to turn the chips on? Magical power sources? Magical electricity fairies?
I mean, you're famously a big fan of solar. 1 terawatt of solar power, so with a 25% capacity factor, like 4 terawatts of solar panels. It's like 1% of the land area of the United States. And that's like we're in the singularity when we've got 1 terawatt of data centers, right? So what are we running out of exactly?
How far into the singularity are you, though?
You tell me.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll find we're in the singularity and like, oh, okay, we're still got a long way to go.
But is the plan to like put it in the space after we've covered Nevada and solar panels?
I think it's pretty hard to cover Nevada and solar panels. You have to get like permits from try getting the permits for that.
So the space is really it's really a regulatory play. It's like harder to build on land than it is in space.
It's harder to scale on the ground than it is to scale in space, but also you're going to get about 5 times the effectiveness of solar panels in space versus the ground, and you don't need batteries. I almost wore my other shirt, which says "It's always sunny in space," which it is. So, because you don't have a day-night cycle or seasonality, clouds, or an atmosphere in space, because the atmosphere alone results in about a 30% loss of energy. So you're going any given solar panels can do about 5 times more power in space than on the ground, and you avoid the cost of having batteries to carry you through the night. So it's actually much cheaper to do it in space. And my prediction is that it will be by far the cheapest place to put AI will be space in 36 months or less, maybe 30 months.
36 months?
Less than 36 months.
How do you service GPUs as they fail, which happens quite often in training?
Actually, it depends on how recent the GPUs are that have arrived. I mean, at this point, we found our GPUs to be quite reliable. There's infinite mortality, which you can obviously iron out on the ground. So you can just run them on the ground and confirm that you don't have infinite mortality with the GPUs. But once they start working, their actual reliability and once they start working and you're past the initial debug cycle of NVIDIA or whatever, or whoever's making the chips, could be Tesla AI 6 chips or something like that, or it could be TPUs or Trainiums or whatever. The reliability is actually they're quite reliable past a certain point. So I don't think the servicing thing is an issue. But you can mark my words. In 36 months, but probably closer to 30 months, the most economically compelling place to put AI will be space. And then it will get it'll then get like ridiculously better to be in space. And then the scaling, the only place you can really scale is space. Once you start thinking in terms of what percentage of the sun's power are you harnessing, you realize you have to go to space. You can't scale very, very much on Earth.
But by very much, to be clear, you're talking like terawatts.
Yeah. Well, all of the United States currently uses only half a terawatt of power on average.
Yeah.
Right. So if you say a terawatt, that would be twice as much electricity as the United States currently consumes. So that's quite a lot. And can you imagine building that many data centers? I mean, that many power plants? It's like those who have lived in software land don't realize that they're about to have a hard lesson in hardware. It's actually very difficult to build power plants. And then you don't just need you need power plants, you need all of the electrical equipment, you need the electrical transformers to run the transformers, the AI transformers. Now, the utility industry is a very slow industry. They pretty much they impedance match to the government, to the Public Utility Commission. So they're they impedance match literally and figuratively. So they're very slow because their past has been very slow. So trying to get them to move fast is just if you try to do an interconnect agreement have you ever tried to do an interconnect agreement with a utility at scale, with a lot of power?
As a professional podcaster, I can say that I'm not, in fact.
Yeah.
You need many more views before that becomes an issue.
They have to do a study for a year. Okay. A year later, they'll come back to you with their interconnect study.
But can't you solve this with your own behind-the-meter power stuff?
You can build power plants.
Yeah.
That's what we did at XAI for Colossus 2. So for Colossus 2...
But why we're talking about the grid, why not just build GPUs and power co-located?
That's what we did.
Right, but I'm saying, why isn't this a generalized solution? When you're talking about all the issues...
Where do you get the power plants from?
I'm saying when you talk about all the issues working with utilities, you can just build private power plants with the data centers.
Right, but it begs the question of where do you get the power plants? Where do you get the power plants from?
I mean...
The power plant makers.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is the gas turbine backlog, basically?
Yes. You can drill down to a level further. It's the vanes and blades in the turbines that are the limiting factor, because the casting it's like a very specialized process to cast the blades and vanes in the turbines, assuming using gas power, and it's very difficult to scale other forms of power. You can scale potentially solar, but the tariffs currently for importing solar in the US are gigantic, and the domestic solar production is pitiful.
Why not make solar? That seems like a good Elon-shaped problem.
We are going to make solar.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
But both SpaceX and Tesla are building towards 100 gigawatts a year of solar cell production.
How low down the stack, from polysilicon up to the wafer to the final panel?
I think you got to do the whole thing from raw materials to finished cell. Now, if it's going to space, it's actually it costs less, and it's easier to make solar cells that go to space because they don't need glass, or they don't need much glass, and they don't need heavy framing because they don't have to survive weather events. There's no weather in space. So it's actually a cheaper solar cell that goes to space than the one on the ground.
Is there a path to getting them as cheap as you need in the next 36 months?
Solar cells are already very cheap. They're farcically cheap. It's and if you say, I think solar cells in China are around 25-30 cents a watt or something like that. It's absurdly cheap, and when you take into account now put it in space, and it's 5 times cheaper because it's 5 times. In fact, it's not 5 times cheaper. It's 10 times cheaper because you don't need any batteries. So the moment your cost of access to space becomes low, by far the cheapest and most scalable way to generate tokens is space. It's not even close. It'll be an order of magnitude easier to scale, and chips aside, an order of magnitude. Well, if the point is you won't be able to scale on the ground, you just won't. People are going to hit the wall big time on power generation. They already are. The number of sort of miracles in series that the XAI team had to accomplish in order to get a gigawatt of power online was crazy. We had to gang together a whole bunch of turbines, and then we had permit issues in Tennessee, and had to go across the border to Mississippi, which is fortunately only a few miles away. But then we still had to run the high power lines a few miles and build a power plant in Mississippi, and it was very difficult to build that. And people don't understand how much electricity do you actually need at the generator level, at the generation level, in order to power a data center. Because they look at the news will look at the power consumption of say a GB300 and multiply that by a thing, and then think that's the amount of power you need.
All the cooling and everything.
Wake up, yeah. This is like that's a total noob. You've never done any hardware in your life before. Besides the GB300, you've got to power all of the networking hardware. There's a whole bunch of CPU and storage stuff that's happening. You've got to size for your peak cooling requirements. So that means, can you cool even on the worst hours, the worst day of the year? Well, it's pretty freaking hot in Memphis. So you're going to have like a 40% increase on your power just for cooling. Assuming you don't want your data center to turn off on hot days and you want it to keep going. Then you've got to say, well, there's another multiplicative element on top of that, which is, are you assuming that you never have any hiccups in your power generation? Like, oh, well, actually, sometimes we have to take the generators, some of the power offline in order to service it. Oh, okay, now you add another 20-25% multiplier on that, because you've got to assume that you've got to take power offline to service it. So the actual roughly every 110,000 GB300s, inclusive of networking, CPU storage, cooling, margin for servicing power, is roughly 300 megawatts.
Sorry, say that again.
It's roughly, or think about it like, the way you think about it is like 330,000 to actually what you need at the generation level to service probably service 330,000 GB300s, including all of the associated support networking and everything else, and the peak cooling, and to have some power margin reserve, is roughly a gigawatt.
Can I ask a very naive question?
Yeah.
You're describing the engineering details of doing this stuff on Earth. But then there's analogous engineering difficulties of doing it in space. How do you do the, how do you replace infinite band with orbital lasers, et cetera, et cetera? How do you make it resistant to radiation? I don't know the details of the engineering, but fundamentally, what is the reason to think those challenges, which have never been, had to be addressed before, will end up being easier than just like building more turbines on Earth? There's companies that build turbines on Earth. They can make more turbines, right?
I invite, again, try doing it, and then you'll see. Like the turbines are sold out through 2030.
Have you guys considered making your own?
I think in order to bring enough power online, I think SpaceX and Tesla will probably have to make the turbine blades, the vanes and blades, internally.
But just the blades or the turbines?
The limiting factor, you can get everything except the blades, what they call the blades and vanes. You can get that 12 to 18 months before the vanes and blades, the limiting factor of the vanes and blades. And there are only 3 casting companies in the world that make these, and they're massively backlogged.
Is this Siemens, GE, those guys, or is it a subcontractor?
No, it's other companies. I mean, sometimes they have a little bit of casting capability in-house, but I'm just saying you can just call any of the turbine makers and they will tell you. Yeah. It's not top secret. It's probably on the internet right now.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the tariffs, would Colossus be solar powered?
It would be much easier to make it solar powered. Yeah. The tariffs are nuts. It's several $100%. So.
Don't you know some people?
We also need speed. Yeah, no. President has his, we don't agree on everything. This administration is not the biggest fan of solar.
But
we also need the land, the permits, and everything. So if you try to move very fast, I do think scaling solar on Earth is a good way to go. Yeah. But you do need some amount of time to find the land, get the permits, get the solar, pair that with the batteries.
But why would it not work to stand up your own solar production? And then you're right that you eventually run out of land, but there's a lot of land here in Texas. There's a lot of land in Nevada, including private land. It's not all publicly owned land. And so you'd be able to at least get the next Colossus and like the next one after that. And at a certain point you hit a wall, but wouldn't that work for the moment?
As I said, we are scaling solar production. there's a rate at which you can scale physical production of solar cells. We're going as fast as possible in scaling domestic production.
You're making the solar cells at Tesla?
Both Tesla and SpaceX have a mandate to get to 100 gigawatts a year of solar.
Speaking of the annual capacity, I'm curious, in 5 years' time, let's say, what will the installed capacity be on Earth?
5 years is a long time.
And in space? I deliberately picked 5 years because it's after your once we're up and running threshold. And so in 5 years' time, what's the on Earth versus in space installed AI capacity?
5 years, I think probably, if you say 5 years from now, we're probably, AI in space will be launching every year the sum total of all AI on Earth in excess, meaning 5 years from now, my prediction is we will launch and be operating every year more AI in space than the cumulative total on Earth.
Which is?
So I would expect to be at least sort of 5 years from now, a few hundred gigawatts per year of AI in space and rising. So you can get to, I think on Earth, you can get to around a terawatt a year of AI in space before you start having, fuel supply challenges for the rocket.
Okay, but you think you can get to hundreds of gigawatts per year in 5 years' time?
Yes.
So 100 gigawatts, depending on the specific power of the whole system with solar arrays and radiators and everything, is on the order of like 10,000 Starship launches.
Yes.
And you want to do that in 1 year. And so that's like one Starship launch every hour.
Yeah.
That's happening in this city. Like, walk me through a world where there's a Starship launch every single hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a low rate compared to airlines, like aircraft.
There's a lot of airports.
A lot of airports, but...
And you got to launch the polar orbit.
No, it doesn't have to be polar, but you just... There's some value to sun synchronous, but I think actually, if you just go high enough, you start getting out of Earth's shadow. So...
How many physical Starships are needed to do 10,000 launches a year?
I don't think we'll need more than... I mean, you could probably do it with as few as like 20 or 30. It really depends on how quickly does the ship has to go around the Earth, and the ground track for the ship has to come back over the launch pad. So if you can use a ship every, say, 30 hours, you could do it with 30 ships. But we'll make more ships than that. But the SpaceX is gearing up to do 10,000 launches a year, and maybe even 20 or 30,000 launches a year.
Is the idea to become basically a hyperscaler, become an oracle, and lend this capacity to other people? What are you going to do with? Presumably, SpaceX is the one launching all this. So is SpaceX become a hyperscaler?
Hyper. Yeah, I mean, if assuming my predictions come true, SpaceX will launch more AI than the cumulative amount on Earth of everything else combined.